welcome to our podcast, question mark?
Welcome to our singular podcast episode.
Yeah. So our podcast episode will be on political spectacle, mediated reality, some dramatic license, but mostly we will be focusing on Jackie Kennedy, how it kind of started with her, and then fell onto Diana, the Princess of Wales, and then where it's at now with Donald Trump. Yeah.
Kind of going from two influential women to a very idolized man
For sure.
is interesting.
Yeah.
But, like, as a concept, but I think that they all kind of interconnect based on how far
For sure.
the political spectacle ideal has come.
Mm-hmm. All right, so first I would like to start off by defining the political spectacle. So according to Kellner in 2017, he said the scope of the spectacle has thus increased in the past decades with the proliferation of new media and social networking like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or now known as X, Instagram, Skype, and the like that increases the scope and participation of the spectacle. But further, Guy Debord's described a society of the spectacle in which the economy, politics, social life, and culture were increasingly dominated by forms of spectacle. And then, Zoe, would you like to read or tell us about some mediated reality?
Of course I would. So, mediated reality is what people believe to be true, or what they're told based on the interpretations of someone, something, or a situation. So, yeah.
For sure. All right, so we are gonna start out with Jackie Kennedy. So we talked a lot about her in class and her relation to Camelot, which was a very popular story that was adapted into a musical during the 1950s. And she often compared JFK to King Arthur, who was a hero in the musical and the story, who embodied courage, diplomacy, and self-sacrifice. In the story, it said, quote, "Don't let it be forgot that for one brief shining moment there was Camelot." And she kind of adapted this to fit JFK's presidency in a way, as though it was very brief, as he only lived through 2.5 years of his 4-year term, that she saw a lot that he could do with that, and she saw a lot of potential in him to make great changes to America. So that's how she kind of adapted that to JFK and really like centered him as King Arthur. And then further, the people of America, she often framed that the people of America had taken away his chance to change the country for the better. And she desired to immortalize JFK's legacy as a beacon of hope and inspiration for others. She achieved this as symbolizing and relating to him to, again, King Arthur. Further, the Camelot myth emerged as a way to characterize JFK's presidency as a brief yet shining moment of idealism, hope, and cultural vigor, much like the legendary kingdom of Camelot from the Arthurian folklore. But at the heart of the story was Camelot, representing the very best humanity had to offer: chivalry, courage, sacrifice, and nobility. And once again, Jackie thought that was her husband, that those ideals, those characteristics really embodied who JFK was. So the Camelot metaphor was first publicly associated with the Kennedy administrations by Jackie herself during an interview with Life magazine's Theodore H. White in 1963, which was just weeks after JFK's assassination. In this article, she referenced the Broadway musical Camelot, which was one of JFK's favorite, to portray their time in the White House as a period of idealism, hope, and cultural vibrancy. The Camelot comparison became a powerful narrative tool, emphasizing the Kennedy presidency's romanticized aspects despite its short duration and challenges. The Camelot narrative, as depicted in the movie Jackie, reflects broader themes of the myth-making in politics and the media. It kind of framed Jackie as this maestro storyteller, because all of this really came after JFK had died. So all of this like mediated reality, and we don't really know what's true and what's fake, and she really like adapted this persona after he had been shot. So I thought that was very interesting, and how this Camelot narrative kind of came to become like his memory and the family's memory, and how they kind of like fit that mold. But further, it underscores how historical legacies can be shaped, manipulated, and immortalized through storytelling, imagery, and symbolism. The enduring appeal of the Camelot myth speaks to its resonance as a powerful metaphor for the Kennedy administration's brief but impactful legacy, leaving a lasting imprint on American culture and collective memory. And just as like a little context thrown in here, JFK had a very turbulent 2 years while in office. Not only was it the start of the civil rights movement, but there was a lot of unrest in the country, and also it was like the heat of the Cold War. He did Bay of Pigs. He was, in conflicts with Cuba. So really in the midst of fighting communism, and it was very turbulent. And I think Jackie showing that he could really get through that, but the American people had kind of taken that from him, was very interesting.
I feel like her basically doing this whole, making an entire spectacle out of JFK's funeral, and also like in then creating like a spectacle in and around herself, or like there was a spectacle created around herself, definitely like had a lot to do with Camelot. Not that she was influenced by it at all, but there's like a lot of connection between the fact that she wanted the entire world to see him the way that she saw him.
Yes.
And then it like you can also like take it into the fact that she was looked at as like a very fashionable person of the time.
Yeah.
And during the White House tour that she did, she was like looked at as like a very pretty lady and a very good first lady, even though it was like for like a very like a pretty short amount of time.
Yeah.
And then obviously like coming out of the plane in the pink suit.
Yes. Iconic.
That's iconic. And also,
for those who don't know, the pink suit is so iconic because it's the suit that she wore to the Texas parade. It was the suit where JFK's blood got on her skirt, and she continued to wear it even though I'm pretty sure it was Lyndon B. Johnson's wife asked her if she wanted to change, and she was like, no, I want to show the American people what they have done. And that's like such an iconic line.
And like I also feel like another way that a spectacle was created around her was like, obviously being the first lady of the United States, you're automatically like put on some type of like pedestal of like 100%. The American homemaker.
Yep.
Especially during that time.
I was just gonna say,
she was the American homemaker.
Yep.
So just everything that comes with being the president's wife.
Yes.
And also the way that she decided to handle the entire situation, making it as iconic as Lincoln's funeral, like going back to even that. She like wanted it to be remembered. She wanted her husband to be remembered. Yes. And in turn made herself memorable with what she'd done.
Yeah. 100%. And let's like dive into that. Like the people of America at that time were so excited to have such a young couple in the White House because it was like somebody they could idolize. Also, I think it was important that JFK was the president during this time because, younger people are usually more liberal and usually more open to like equality and all those things, which is super important during the civil rights movement. But also, they were just idolized. They had little children. Like, I'm pretty sure their children were under the age of like 6 when they were in the White House.
A few of them were then.
And even the connection with like Bobby Kennedy being in the administration, like JFK's brother, and like that becoming a spectacle, and the rise of Ted Kennedy in politics.
It like really made the White House a family affair.
Oh, for sure. And people weren't just like occupied with what JFK was doing, but they were also interested in what Jackie was doing, as seen in that interview where Jackie gives a tour of the White House, and people were just so interested. They just wanted to know more. They wanted to be them. They almost had a parasocial relationship with the Kennedys back in like the 60s, which is so crazy to think about because I know parasocial relationships are something that we talk a lot about today, but it was really prevalent during that time.
I feel like, especially with the ability to like have docudramas on people like this, it might not seem like they're as idolized or as kind of created in such an idealized spectacle until these docudramas come out, because you don't realize how normalized it has really become. So like when the Jackie Kennedy docudrama came out, people were like, oh, because it shows things of like behind the scenes of all of the interviews that she's done and all of the kind of puppeteering of the things after. Well, like a lot of it is overemphasized or
like dramatic license.
Yeah, fictional. For the most part, like the idea behind a lot of it, kind of coaching her into making sure that she's smiling, she's talking a certain way, she's saying certain things to the American people so that they hear certain things, see her a certain way, see her husband a certain way.
Yeah.
She was basically just a like ploy to get more interest in her husband for him to be likable.
For sure. And she was like very maestro. Let's go back to talking about after he had died, but she was very hands-on with like media coverage after the incident. Even though she barely spoke to the media, she did want to speak to the media a lot. And then she made sure that only the things that she wanted to be publicized were actually publicized. Like we kind of see in articles written about that time, and then also in the docudrama Jackie, like she was very hands-on with planning the funeral procession. And even though people had warned her about walking in front of the casket and leading the procession, she thought it was so iconic, and that like people would remember him and remember her in that, with that black veil over her, and really feel remorse because of like they literally took her everything when they shot JFK. So she wanted them to like know that. She wanted, it was like the first assassination we had since Lincoln, I'm pretty sure. And like she wanted him to be remembered, and like, that was so long ago that like this doesn't happen often, and like we have to name everything after him, like the JFK airport in New York, like the NASA station was actually called JFK for a little while. You know what I mean? Like just naming these things so it comes like over and is portrayed, even though he had such a short term in the White House, but just making sure he is put into normal everyday dialogue still, even after he's not here anymore.
Okay, I just Googled it because she did talk about other presidents that were assassinated. It's because we don't remember them.
Yeah, facts.
It's because we don't remember them.
So
and they
true.
brought it up in the docudrama, the fact that like she was like talking to the driver of like her and Bobby being in the hearse.
The hearse. Yeah.
So it's Abraham Lincoln, then James Garfield, then William McKinley. But the thing is, like, she was like, "Do you remember James Garfield?" And he was like, "No." "Do you remember William McKinley? No." "Do you remember Abraham Lincoln?" "Of course." Like, and
she even like was like, it's so sad that nobody remembers Mary Todd Lincoln and just remembers Abraham Lincoln for the action that was taken against him because he was assassinated. And she just thought that was so just like sad, and she wanted to be remembered, but more than that, she wanted JFK to be remembered.
Yeah, she wanted his legacy to like live on, and with that she like created a legacy for herself. So especially like after doing all these things that put her, well, like the unfortunate events that put her even to the center of the political eye, like of the political eye, which is because her husband like was assassinated. She's now the center of the political eye. And at like the end of the docudrama, I thought it was like so good the way that they showed her like driving past all the department stores and seeing all of the mannequins coming out dressed exactly like her, with her haircut,
100%.
Everything like that. And I thought that that was the perfect representation of just how, and we could even just say like women alone are like,
especially in the limelight,
like portrayed via the media, and how like that is personified in everyday life, because everyone wants to be them. Everyone wants to be them. That's just basically the biggest part. Like you want to be someone that you can't be.
And it's almost like, it was really interesting with Jackie Kennedy because almost every woman at this time, like you think of Marilyn Monroe, sexualized. Like every woman that was famous at this time was sexualized. But for some reason, like she was like the display of like perfection and purity. And she really embodied like this public image that was so pure, and just like you wanted to like preserve her and like keep her away from like all the harms of like, you know, humanity.
Well, like, I'm sure at some point she was sexualized, but like in the way of like within this, it was more just like they feel like after JFK was shot, they probably were like, we probably can't do that.
Yeah, that's so true. But even during her presidency, or during JFK's presidency, like when she was in the White House, she wasn't really as sexualized as other women were during that time. And that could be because of like the prestige that the White House and being the president holds. But I just thought that was so interesting that she was so beautiful, but she was almost like a national treasure in a sense, that like people just wanted her to keep portraying that like her and JFK had this great love story, and they're two young kids in love, and like they have a whole family, and you know, like JFK's so good looking,
and then like boom, and like he's rising through power, and he's getting all these connections. Now he's president of the United States. Like, look, this is the American family.
Yes.
And then
this is the American dream.
And then it's like, okay, now it's a tragedy.
Yeah.
Now it's a horrible tragedy, and like the media is hounding all over them. And everyone's trying to get, like, secret information, and while they're also trying to keep everyone else within the circle safe, she's just, like, overly protected with also being so, like, vulnerable. Because, like, she's in the position where everything has, like, she's seen in her worst moment.
Yeah.
So with that vulnerability, it's easier to go after her. Like, it's easier to come after her for anything that she's done. And I feel like that's also like with a lot of fear with women in the media and like the political sphere, anyone in the political sphere then and now, like, you can't show vulnerability at all. Or you'll be attacked, and you can easily be brought down by like white men in politics, and especially the people that follow them. So having such a huge following that idealized her kind of definitely kept her safe in the political sphere after JFK died.
For sure. Like, there were, like, she often told people to, like, let her be with the people, but, like, people were so scared that she was going to get assassinated too. Like, because she was also a target. But yeah, I think I want to go back to, like, that juxtaposition is crazy, where, like, this is the perfect family, you know, they're up-and-coming Americans, like, they literally identify the American ideals, you know what I mean? And, like, a family, and, like, the Kennedys were, like, hardworking people, and, like, how did they rise to fame, you know? And now this really nice family, you know, he's got his brothers in the cabinet, and now it's just tragic. And then after JFK's assassinated, like, Bobby Kennedy's assassinated while running for president, and it's like, what is happening right now? It's like, what is happening? Like, this, like, everybody is after them. We talked a little bit about the Jackie docudrama, but to give a little more context, so Jackie was portrayed by Natalie Portman,
who did such a good job. I think she was like the perfect Jackie.
She talked. We read multiple articles that were like, she talked exactly like Jackie Kennedy.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really
and you
interesting.
can hear like the side by side videos of them talking, and it was like insane.
Yeah. So I kind of want to just go over like how she was portrayed in the movie versus like how she was portrayed in public. So in the movie, it was actually, there was a lot of dramatic license. Obviously, it's not a documentary. A lot of it is false information. And a lot of it shows her behind closed doors, and Jackie Kennedy's no longer with us. So obviously she can't really testify to what is correct and what's not. But I will say the movie played heavily into her substance abuse, including mostly pills and alcohol.
Prescription medication and alcohol.
Yeah, and then cigarettes as well. She was a serial smoker, I think, after JFK died. It also showed her spending a lot of time with this priest, kind of reflecting. She almost used it as like a therapy measure.
Yeah, like reflecting on her faith.
Yeah, for sure. And then also just like, you know, she had a hard time keeping the faith after JFK had died, because it's like, how could God do something, literally take my love away?
And like also take away the person who's like she saw him as someone who's going to like create a better future of America.
Yeah, for sure. Like, why did you take away this shining light of hope?
Like the untapped potential.
Yeah.
Almost.
Something else I found interesting in the docudrama was her relationship with Bobby, because she was very close with Bobby.
Yeah, they were very close. And then obviously, like, after that, I can't even imagine what she was like after his assassination.
Oh, yeah, because out of the Kennedy brothers, there's quite a few. She was the closest to him, and I think JFK was the closest to him as well. But I thought it was interesting that she was also close with him. And then, lastly, her portrayal of depression and her mental health struggles, which I would not be shocked if that was true, because, I mean, her life had just, been taken away, basically, and left with JFK's. He was her everything. So if she was depressed in real life, that would not surprise me in the slightest, but once again, we have no idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, ultimately she was displayed and like portrayed as this like mastermind, maestro, storyteller, in which she kept her husband's and her memory alive. And that's how the spectacle of Jackie Kennedy and JFK really originated. It's so interesting that like most of it was like after he had died and he wasn't even here anymore. I mean, they were spectacleized and like they were popularized during the presidency, but once again, it didn't last that long. So it's really interesting how that all came about like afterwards. Yeah, so just to wrap things up on Jackie Kennedy, the Camelot narrative reflected broader themes of myth-making and politics and the media. It underscores how historical legacies can be shaped, manipulated, and immortalized through storytelling, imagery, and symbolism. And the enduring appeal of the Camelot myth speaks to its resonance as a powerful metaphor for the Kennedy administration's brief but impactful legacy, leaving a lasting imprint on American culture and collective memory. And now everybody knows who Jackie Kennedy is and the spectacle with her.
Now we're talking about the People's Princess. This is kind of what I think started our idea spiral into political spectacle. Like, day one of the semester, we were sitting in class and Dr. Payne was like, so let's we're going over terms and things like that, and brought up political spectacle, and then we all brought up Princess Diana.
Yeah.
And we were just kind of going off on a tangent about that, and me and Alyssa looked at each other and we were like, okay, so we know what we're doing for our final.
It's so interesting.
And it's so interesting. So a little background on Diana. I feel like everyone kind of knows the story, but if someone doesn't, Lady Diana Spencer, her father was an earl in the UK, so she came from a acceptable family. When Prince Charles was looking for a wife, he originally dated her sister. Her older sister. Yes.
I did not know that.
So he dated her older sister. Then after a while, he was in and out of a secret relationship with Camilla. But Camilla was married. And so he was told that he needed a wife and needed to move on. And when going to see Diana's sister at one point, he saw Diana and met Diana and mentioned her to the queen. And they were like, perfect. They met when I think she was 16 and he was maybe in his mid to late 20s. Maybe she was 16 or 17. He was in his mid to late 20s. And they were perfect. A young girl, pretty, smart, very smart. She is someone of nobility. Her father's an earl. They would have accepted the sister too, but there was something about Diana that just fit in perfectly well.
Could I ask what an earl is?
Noble ranking below a marquis and above a viscount.
Okay.
They're just a rank of nobility.
Okay.
It goes viscount, then earl, then marquis. She was a woman of nobility. So she was acceptable, she was young, she was pretty, she was smart. Perfect. Did they get along very well? No, not really. But she was perfect. So, then after she moved to London, she worked as a nanny for a while. Then she worked in, I think, a preschool or a kindergarten. And then it was kind of come to the time that they're dating for a while. He's still seeing Camilla on the side, but they need to get married. So she gets married really young, in her early 20s. And they live a life together. She struggles, it doesn't come out till later, but she struggles a lot with an eating disorder, bulimia. And during their marriage, there's also a lot of infidelity. It definitely was not the smoothest of marriages, nor was it the happiest, but obviously William and Harry came out of it. So then they kind of get to the point of divorce, which had not been done before in the Church of England. Basically, we're like, okay, this is not working anymore. He does not love Diana.
He was unfaithful, right?
Yeah, he was unfaithful. I'm not going to say that she was not. She was also unfaithful to him, just to, like, keep the book totally open, but, like, it did start with him. Literally having...
Back with Camilla!
He was literally having a long-term relationship with Camilla while she was married with children, and he was married. Then they end up getting divorced after a long battle. She's secretly telling her stories to a ghostwriter who, like, ends up writing her story after a long time. So, like, while they're divorced, she kind of ends up dating multiple men and things like that. And throughout this entirety of their marriage, she was more popular than him, and that was, like, one of the biggest constituencies in their marriage. The public, she was the people's princess. The people loved her. Everyone loved her around the world. People loved her, and they just didn't like him. She was
another beautiful woman.
Another amazing, smart woman who outshined her husband. She literally outshined him, and she's even doing it, like, after her death.
Yep.
She will outshine him forever. So, like, whenever they would go somewhere, everyone was there cheering for her, giving her flowers, little girls, like, wanting her autograph, giving her like, things like that. And that was, like, such a sore spot for them, other than Camilla, in their marriage, that she was more popular than him. She was what the people wanted. She was what the news wanted. She was the ideal woman. And he was jealous. He was so jealous. Like, he is next in line for the throne, and no one cares.
Yeah.
And no one cares about him. Which, like, definitely goes back to, like, some deep-rooted trauma with the fact that, like...
And his ego.
No, his ego, like, definitely was severely burnt by his relationship with Diana.
Could you imagine growing up in the royal family, and then you marry someone that's not even a royal, really? Like, was not grown up with did not grow up with royalty. Being more popular than you?
Like, not to protect him at all.
No, like, not to protect him, but that's
but,
crazy.
Like, that's crazy that it got to that point, but, like
if that happened to me, I would not care, but if that happened to King Charles, I know he cared.
Oh, we know he cared.
Oh, we know.
But that was, like, the biggest issue, was that she was more popular than him no matter where they went, no matter what they did, things together. All eyes were on her. Yeah. And no one paid attention to him because no one cared.
And honestly, I think that is because she didn't come from royalty, and the royals are on such this pedestal. Yeah. And Diana really broke those barriers.
And, like, even though she did come from nobility, like, a lot of people do overlook the fact that she did come from nobility. She came from a wealthy family, like, a wealthier family, things like that. She got a very nice education, but she, like, chose not to do, like, secondary education, like, she didn't go to college. She just went straight into it, and she was, like, she just seemed very down to earth. She seemed like a people person. It was so hard not to love her. There was nothing that you could dislike about her. Yep. So, which is why the people were so attracted to her. They were, like, in this insane line of nobility and people up on pedestals, there's someone that we can actually relate to. Mm-hmm. And so, like, with all that popularity and her ability to, like, make a difference, she worked for a lot of charities while she was still married to Prince Charles. She was, I think, probably one of the first people to go into an AIDS ward and, like, sit with AIDS patients, touch AIDS patients, people that were literally suffering alone who, like, no one would even go near them. So she used that power. Like, she used that political eye on her to make a difference. But she was in Africa doing, or some type of...
A lot of, like, poverty work.
A lot of poverty work.
Like,
she
clean
was also
drinking water stuff.
She was also, like, in Indonesia at one point. Yeah. She walked across a minefield. Actually, that's true. What? She walked across an active minefield to, like, display the danger that everyday children in that area go through, trying to, like, walk to school or, like, farm. So obviously went to a lot of galas. As a royal, you do so. You are a, like, representative of the crown. So, like, a lot of that work. But a lot of her work was self-drawn, like, was self-brought. She did a lot of things that she thought was important. So she continued that as well after she was divorced from Charles.
Yeah.
But I want to focus on that before we kind of, like, move on to, like, her death.
Yeah. And I would like to say also, like, the royals are very spectacleized already. But, like, when you see someone literally putting themselves in everyday danger that other people face, it's like, wow, this person's, like, really one of us. Like, it's almost like that populism, but she wasn't a populist. She was just like, I want to better understand, like, the difficulties of the everyday person. And I just thought that was so powerful.
And she wanted to, like, she wanted it to be seen by other people, and, like, the way for it to be seen was for her to do something.
Yeah.
Because, like, no matter what, all eyes were on her. She was the people's princess. She was the woman of the time. Everyone wanted to dress like her. Everyone wanted their hair like her. Everyone wanted to be her.
Yeah.
Obviously, and then she's struggling so much behind the background and no one can see. Like, behind the screen and no one can see it.
Yeah. I also think it's so interesting that the royals, like, the monarchy is literally supposed to be for the people, like, they're governing for the people, but, like, the first time that they really felt that, like, the royal family was one of them was with Diana.
No, definitely. All right, so, like, back to the story of Diana. Everyone kind of knows where it goes from here. She's dating a few men on and off, and then she ends up getting with Dodi Lafayette, and they are in Paris, and they get into a car to try to escape the paparazzi, and they're speeding away. We're not going to go into the conspiracy theories of her death, but her car, her driver...
are definitely some.
There's a million. Her driver did crash in a tunnel in Paris, and she passed away, along with Dodi Lafayette. The important... not the important part, but, like, a really interesting part to mention, especially with the spectacle on her, was the paparazzi coverage.
Yep.
They attacked her, hounded her every single day since the day that she started dating or seeing Charles. They started bothering her, and they never stopped until literally the day and the moment that she died.
Yep.
And that was, like, I think that that's just crazy. No matter what, she was surrounded by paparazzi. She was surrounded by paps at all times. Every single thing she did. There's not a single moment that she was, like, not surrounded by paparazzi. And, like, that's just horrible to think about. Like, that's her whole life. Like, yes, she gets to do all these important things and be seen and make things have importance and certain things be seen, but she's also going through all these vulnerable moments. She's going through bulimia. She's raising 2 sons. She's going through a cheating marriage. She's going through a divorce. She's going through, like, a lot of things, but she's still...
How to date again. How to, like, life is not a royal, basically.
Life is not a royal, even though because she was so important to the people, she kept the title of Princess Diana. They let her keep her title, which is also crazy.
That is also crazy.
Of them to, like, be able to... They let her get a divorce, then keep her title because she was so important to the people of the world. Like, literally, that's, like, not even a metaphor, like, of the world. She was so influential that they let her keep the title of Princess Diana, even though she was not married to the future king and not married into the royal family. She wasn't a royal anymore.
Yeah.
But her sons were royalty, future kings.
Yep.
Like, future importance. So, like, obviously she gets to keep her title. Basically, the biggest conspiracy is, like, well, no, not even, okay, I won't bring up a conspiracy, but she died under very conspicuous terms. So it's like a lot of people either think that the crown did it or that it was some type of, like, paparazzi. Like, I think the biggest thing was, like, one of the things that they thought was the most accurate was that the driver was intoxicated.
Yeah. I think
it was,
that's the
it's
one I
either
heard
that
as
or,
well.
like, a car malfunction. there's also conspiracies of paparazzi, like, trying to get pictures of the camera, and it distracts the driver, and then he crashes.
These are all, like, possible. Like, it's not, I feel like these are, like, very, not conspiracies, but, like, just, like, possible happenings. Like,
possible happenings
whereas,
of, like,
I
don't, like, I think I've watched a million documentaries. One of the documentaries says that it was a car malfunction, and, like, that's what it stands on. Another one says that it's like, there's so many different theories.
I feel like the main conspiracy I've heard is that the Queen had her killed.
That one is a conspiracy. Like, I would say that's a conspiracy.
No, but like what you're saying is like if the driver was drunk, totally possible. Like, the story still stands. You know what I mean?
And it's like, there's obviously, because it's such a high profile case, there's nothing, like, no matter what they say, like, we don't really know if we can trust it.
Yeah, 100%.
Because, like, they want it to seem exactly the way that they want it to seem.
Yeah, the royal family are maestro agenda setters.
Yeah.
Especially with the British news outlets.
Yeah. So, like,
we saw that with Kate Middleton.
Yeah, most recently with Kate Middleton.
Yeah.
Like, keeping her on lockdown. But I feel like going into...
They will set the story that they want out there.
Yeah.
100%.
I feel like that's, like, the consensus of it. So, there was this Diana phenomenon, basically. Like, she was a metaphor she, like, after her death, she became a metaphor and a focal point for, like, rhetorical identification in people. Like, in people, and especially in spectacle. Mm-hmm. They used, like, I'm talking, by they, I mean British media outlets, global media outlets, The Crown especially, used her youth, her idealism, her humanism, like, the fact that she's a royal, like, her royalty, her commonality, and all for dramatic license and mythic making. They basically created someone that you wanted to see, which is an insane idea to think about, because we were just filling in information about her and, like, reasons to love her more than we already did.
Yep. She could do no wrong.
She could do no wrong. And that comes from, like, a lot of that information and a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about, other than, like, my general knowledge, comes from a book that's written on...
Growing up in a Diana fanatic household.
Yeah, well, definitely. Okay, for one, growing up in a Diana fanatic household, my mother is obsessed with Princess Diana, had a parasocial relationship with Princess Diana while she was alive, and since after her death. There are millions of magazines in my home, a doll, things like that.
A doll?
No, there is. But I grew up with, like, the spectacle idea of the royals and, like, the spectacle ideal of Princess Diana. And even though she's gone, like, she's not physically on this earth. Like, her impact still lives on and will continue to live on. Like, I don't think 100%. It will ever die.
Yeah.
But, like, also a lot of this information comes from an era of celebrity and spectacle, which is, like, a 3-part conference that took place at different times after her death, with, like, a lot of involvement from Emerson College and Dr. Gregory Payne, as well as Goldsmith College. But I think it was really interesting to be able to read the transcripts of these conferences and what was happening, like, just months after her death.
Yeah.
Like, so recently after her death. Reading someone saying, like, Diana isn't dead. Who said this? Andre Royal. Diana is not dead because she never existed. For people who may have met her or interviewed her, she may have, but for people who didn't, she represents an example or an archetype of an image without consistency. Like, the idea that she wasn't alive and she had no reality, she was just an image on screen or, like, on paper created by the press.
Mm-hmm.
Like...
And in the minds of the people.
In the minds of the people. She's an image that was literally created to use and to, like, push the monarchy ideals.
Yeah.
Even though, like, there's that whole idea of the fact that, like, the Queen really did not like her. Like, she did a lot of things that did not align with the Queen, but the fact that they were, like, using her anyway to push, like, the ideal of a monarchy.
100%.
Going, like, she's an image, she's an icon.
It was just exacerbated, too. Like, she never meant for it to go that far. Like, it was just extreme.
Like, she was literally assembled by the media as a construction to, like, keep journalism during that time going. Like, that was basically all they were doing.
Yeah.
For such a long time, like, every single thing about Diana.
I don't think we've seen that since the Brexit or Meghan Markle and Harry leaving.
Yeah.
Like, I think those were the two big things
I feel like,
that really, like, set
I feel
British
like,
journalism back on track.
I feel like the only, like, some of the only comparisons that you could make to the consistent media coverage, it will never be to the extent that it was for her, especially because it was during, like, the 80s and the 90s, like...
Yep. Prime newspaper time.
Like, yeah. Especially because it was during that time.
Yeah.
Is Trump, or I feel like Taylor Swift is also possible.
Yep.
Like, nothing can compare to what that was.
Yeah.
And never will.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the only other, like, comparison is, like,
even
William
when legit,
and Harry.
I was going to say,
like,
even when legit, like, a royal left the family, like, was like, I'm done.
Yeah. Like, even, like, basically growing up in that in, like, that eye of the world. Like, only other royals are people who experience that.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea, like, the phenomenon of the People's Princess, like, you literally referred to her when we started as the People's Princess, because that's exactly how she was scripted to be defined as. It was a calculated commercial commodification to describe Princess Diana, to make her commercialized, to give her, like, an easy, like, you say the People's Princess and every single person knows what you're talking about. Every single person knows who you're referring to.
Yep.
They create these narratives about her, like, true or fake, when she was alive and when now she's dead. Like, there's all these things swirling around that you don't know what you can believe because there's so much information out there.
Yeah, and
but
people, journalism in Britain was crazy, and, like, journalists would kill for a shot of Diana, like, just a picture, because their literal, like, paycheck relied on it. So if they did not, like, perpetuate any stories or find out any small, like, inkling of information, like, they would not get paid.
Yeah.
So that was, like, another factor of, like, the spreading of misinformation during this time as well. Because nobody really knew what was going on. Only the royals really knew what was going on.
Yeah.
But, like, the press would hear something and roll with it.
Exactly. The idea that they're constructing fake narratives, like, spin doctoring things, and also, like, her involvement in the political sphere was so important because she, like, her and Charles, they do tours. Like, royalty does tours as representations of the crown.
Yeah.
That's what they call it. They call it tours. And they send them to, like, British controlled countries to make appearances. They came to the US. She came to the White House a few times.
Oh.
She also came.
She was in close relations.
The first time she came was in 1985. Well, she's always sent, they're always, no matter what, they are always sent as representatives of the crown.
Yeah.
So she first came with Charles in 1985 to visit and meet with Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan when he was president. And then, like, she also came in 1997 on behalf of the Red Cross, where she met then First Lady Hillary Clinton. So, but the crown talks about
docudrama.
Also, we're gonna bring that up.
Yeah.
Because, like, that was, like, that coming out, and also, like, the crown in general, like, the spectacle and, like, the political spectacle that creates.
Yeah.
For the royal family in general.
I've never seen people take a docudrama so like, truth.
So
before.
Factually. They take it, every single person takes it exactly pinpointed the truth.
It's honestly harmful.
Yeah. It's like, that's where it gets to the point of, like, how harmful is a docudrama.
Yeah.
But she, like, came to the White House. They come as representatives. They go places as representatives of the crown to, like, make peace talks, to, like, show the fact that there is, like, a connection and a positive like impact between the two countries. So she is also used as a political pawn in literally every single thing that she did, especially while she was married to Charles. Like, especially when she was married to Charles, because she was under the finger of the crown, that she was used as a political pawn. But I guess to, like, kind of wrap that into the docudrama, in The Crown, she's shown as very, not weak, but very shy, and very, she's very shy, very naive, young, because she is young, because she's so young.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they did a good job with, like, really showing her age. They also, like, made her, like, just seem so much younger than she actually was, I feel like.
So she's played by Elizabeth Debicki and Julie Wooldridge.
Yeah.
Wooldridge. Very interesting. She's played by two people because The Crown, if you don't know what The Crown is, basically goes through the history of the royals, starting with the Queen Elizabeth.
With her dad, with her father. Well, it even goes into the fact that her father became king because his older brother he had to abdicate because he wanted to get divorced and get married to a different woman.
But it basically shows a very long history of the monarchy.
And it is a docudrama, so it's not all of it is true.
It is finished now.
Yes, they did.
There's a final season.
But it depicts her, like, towards the beginning, a lot of genuinely what she was and what she wasn't seen as while it was happening. A young child. Someone who was taken advantage of.
Yep.
And brought into this political eye without actually realizing what it was. She had no clue, like, what she was getting herself into.
Yeah, she had no choice either, really.
And then it kind of, like, brings you through the fact that, like, now she's in this place where it's like she feels like she's not accepted by the queen or a lot of the family members. She's not really seen as equal. She feels like the odd one out because she doesn't really understand the mannerisms. And, like, even goes on to, like, everyone, I feel like everyone has heard, like, the famous line from the docudrama, like, and he's like, well, Prince Charles goes, I'm trying to, like, think of, like, the best way to, like, start saying this.
Do you want to just say it and then we can provide context after?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or I can provide context first.
Okay,
so they're fighting about Camilla, basically. And, like, his relationship with Camilla and the fact that they want to get divorced.
Yep.
They bring up the idea they want to get divorced. And basically he's like, that is where my loyalties lie. That is where that is where the importance is. And she's like, not about the mother of your children. Not about the woman you married. And he's like, I cannot, like, go behind, like, hide behind these grotesque misconstrued, I don't even know. But he's just basically yelling at her about the fact that he doesn't love her. He doesn't want to stay married to her. He's in love with Camilla. Camilla is where his loyalties lie. Camilla is where all the importance is. And Diana's like, what do you mean? Like, not your wife, not the mother of your children, not the representation of the crown. Like, you don't care about me. And he's like, no, I really don't.
Yep.
And I feel like that's, like, the most important, like, that's, like, the most known scene. Whether, like, you know it's from that or not, people have heard it. And it's because, like, you see Diana in this vulnerable state of, like, probably, like, 3 scenes before that, she was, like, doing bulimic tendencies and things like that. She wasn't diagnosed with bulimia until a lot later, and then she definitely had she had severe depression and had a few suicide attempts. There was one time where she, like, threw herself down the stairs. That kind of got dark, sorry, but and then she was
trigger warning. She
was then, like, brought, like, to, like, a hospital to, like, get better, basically.
Like a mental institution.
Like, yes, but, like, no, and it was, like, kind of in her home.
Oh.
Because, like, they didn't want anyone to know. Because they didn't want, like, that getting out. So, like, when she broke up with him, like when they broke up, like she had someone come and help her share her story, but it was not published. I'll send this documentary to you, actually, because it's such a good one. And it's about like the documentary that's like the majority is her words. Like he went to her house, sat down with her, had like an audio recorder, asked her questions, she answered them, and like he wrote it, but it's all in her words.
Agenda setter.
Yeah. So, and it's like, okay, at that point, yes, it's her words, but it's also a narrative created by someone else to view her a certain way.
True.
Which is like crazy.
Because it goes through like a middleman.
Exactly. And the Crown, obviously, they want her to be viewed in a certain way. Like, we're not going to view, like, no matter what, Charles is going to be seen as the villain. Like, no matter how much there is to like defend him and like his horrible like, I'm not saying his horrible childhood as in like he struggled a lot. Like childhood, like the psychological abuse side of like being a child of like in royalty, that's like not healthy at all.
No. But he does come from privilege.
But he comes from privilege. And like that's why he will always be seen as the villain.
Okay, so quickly, we do want to get into Donald Trump, but quickly, I just wanted to talk about her attire, because her attire,
like her and Jackie like set mega precedences for clothes.
Yeah, like the revenge dress.
The revenge dress. Do you
want to?
Everyone talks about the revenge dress because like
it's iconic.
No matter what, like every single place she went to, and like every single outfit she wore was iconic.
Yep.
Her hair, iconic.
You see people dressing up as her, like, in these iconic outfits for Halloween.
People are wearing the sheep sweater. I saw a girl on Instagram who was at the castle. She posted a picture on Instagram, and she's wearing the red sheep sweater with the white sheep and then the black sheep. Like, she's wearing the sheep sweater. Like, I want that sweater. Is that sweater $300? Am I going to buy it? No. Do I want it? Yes. But, like, even now, like, the fact of, like, the way that people are, like, getting dresses that look like the revenge dress, buying sweaters that she literally wore. On Pinterest, if you look up, like, styles, pictures of Diana come up if you're looking up certain styles to make, like, I don't know, like, an aesthetics board for, like, what you want your summer wardrobe to look like. There's people who literally dress up as her daily, like, as a fashion icon. She was a fashion icon.
She was,
And
people wanted everything that she wore, but
and they still do.
Yeah, but like she was very privileged. She had
her dress.
They were very inaccessible. Yeah,
her wedding dress was like one of the most iconic royal wedding dresses. She has the longest train. Like she had the longest train. Her dress took so long to make. It was the most like importantly kept secret the entire time it was being made. Like, everyone wanted to be her. Her wardrobe is like what set her apart. She wore casual clothing. Like, you'd never really seen royalty in casual clothing the way that she wore it.
Yeah.
She was the one who set the trends during that time.
And you just like see her out in the street in like biker shorts, a short sleeve t-shirt, and people would be like, I want to wear that because she looks like me. And like even the stuff that she didn't look like them in, she was like, oh, I desire to be in that attire.
Exactly.
So I thought that was very interesting. Do you have anything else to say though?
I think I basically covered it all because, like, I mean, like, I could talk about it for literally years, but we do unfortunately need to move on.
Yeah, we do.
And I feel like that's a really good segue into Donald Trump's political spectacle.
Especially the attire.
The attire. Like, the MAGA hat is number one.
Yeah.
The red MAGA hat, you see anyone with a red hat and you automatically are like, are they wearing a MAGA hat? And then they turn around and like, maybe it's not. And you're like, oh, thank God. Like you go, and like you let out like a sigh of relief, basically.
So a little short history on Donald Trump. He was a New York businessman for a very long time, grew up wealthy. And so he basically built this NYC New York City Trump conglomerate, which was like hotels, casinos, and he was like one of the best businessmen. And then in the early 2000s, I want to say he started his own show called The Apprentice that was basically a game show that had entrepreneurs come on or business people come on and they'd compete for Trump's acceptance, basically. So he's like this very elitist businessman that was really, I guess, centered in the business world, but in 2016, as we all hopefully know, he made the turn towards politics.
Yeah.
He was very politically active throughout his time as a businessman, but in 2016, he decided to run. So the political kind of environment, if you will, the political climate at the time in 2016, President Obama had reached his term limit after 2 terms. So in 2016, both a new Democratic and Republican candidate were able to run. Donald Trump ran on the Republican side, which is interesting because he used to be a Democrat. And Hillary Clinton, who we mentioned earlier, but Bill Clinton's wife, former President Bill Clinton's wife, who was in Obama's cabinet, Secretary of State, ran against Donald Trump. Even though Hillary...
I was about to say, wasn't she Secretary of State?
She was,
You just said that.
No, yeah, she was. Well, you were correct. But, yes, so Hillary Clinton, despite winning the popular vote, did not win the Electoral College, and the presidency went to Donald Trump. And the election had its own configures, like Hillary's forbidden emails. But
and obviously now
we won't dive into that. We're talking about
obviously
the
now
spectacle
like
of
Trump's
Donald
trials, but
yes, Trump's trials, or that jury selection, started Monday, I want to say. But very interesting. Yeah, so let's talk about it. We talked a little bit about the MAGA hats. It was fun little things.
Yeah. I feel like also now, like, the sneakers, those are a big deal.
Yep. The Bible, the signed Bible with the Constitution integrated.
I think he has a book. He probably has a book.
Oh, he definitely has a book. He's also had books written about him.
Yeah, true. Good and bad.
Good and bad.
But I feel like the way to, like, start talking about his spectacle is, like, obviously we brought up the, like, politically, we're going to talk about his presidency.
Yeah.
And, like, I feel like that started with him beginning to run.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, his PR team, his advisors promoting the fact that he's a businessman. He's like...
He's going to fix the economy.
He's going to fix the economy. The fact that
he knows how that works.
The fact that, like, having politicians in the White House hasn't been working. Let's get someone new. Like, let's try something new.
Yeah.
Let's get something new in there.
Like a third party almost.
Yeah.
Because he was like, oh, he's, like, conservative, but he's also, like, really smart. He's been in the business, like, and he's, like, not politically involved. So, like, you know, let's, like, get a middleman in here. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
His campaign was heavily based on that.
Now it's heavily based on the way that it shifted, too, from... like, all of that in 2016, like, for the 2016 election.
Yeah.
And then, like, whatever happened during the last election.
Yeah.
Because, like, honestly, I just think that was a blur in my brain of, like, I think I chose to black it out. To now.
Yeah.
I think it was a lot of, like, the same thing of, like, keep it great.
Yeah.
But you can't really do a lot of saving after he screwed up with COVID so bad.
Yeah. I think
and also everything else that went severely wrong during that presidency, but like
for sure
to now,
like his denying that it's a thing,
denying a lot of things and using a lot of misinformation, but to today's campaign of it being so heavily religionized, he's gone from the ideal of like, let's get in a president who like is going to try something new with the economy. Yeah. And like someone who doesn't really do this before. He never really talked about religion. He never really talked about like, I feel like he didn't really ever push the religious aspect because he never went to church. He has had multiple wives.
Like, appealing to your audience type
thing.
He's
had multiple wives, but like they're realizing
he's had affairs.
Yeah, multiple affairs. As like he's been campaigning for the past almost
8 years.
Yeah, like the past 8 years that his audience is with people who don't usually get talked to and don't really understand political jargon.
Yep.
And those people are heavily religious.
Yep.
So they were like, let's shift gears.
100%. And I think that really goes into like his populist identity. Like Donald Trump is a populist through and through. If you don't know what a populist is, it's someone that is in politics or on a higher level than you, that basically levels themselves to be with you and frames themselves as one of you in order to make you vote for them, support them. And he does this a lot through xenophobia, which is the fear of immigrants. And so basically, like, it's framing you, it's not only framing you as one of them, but it's also like framing the collective group, him included, as like under threat. Like, whereas like they're gonna take your freedoms away, you know, they're gonna take all your jobs. Like, this country isn't gonna be American anymore.
Through his entirety of like the past 8 years of him campaigning, like, he's created his own mediated reality for his followers. He has created this own world that only exists to his followers and people who believe him. And
it's also been portrayed into the mainstream media cycle with like Fox News. Like, people take biased media as truth. It's almost like a docudrama. It's like this mediated reality is being taken as truth when it's literally just like stuff Donald Trump is spewing out his mouth.
Like, no fact checkers. And the thing is, like, people believe it, and there's nothing. The people that are so MAGA hardcore, MAGA, if you don't know, is Make America Great Again. And
it's on the hat.
But it's for people who need something to believe because they feel like they're being lied to, and they
are left out of society.
And this is what they're grasping onto. And it's these insane conspiracy theories that they're like, this has to be true. And for some reason, they have reasonings for literally all of it. And I literally watched a video today that was this guy who was actually saying some of the craziest things I've ever heard that makes me like severely concerned, because it was scary how much he believed it. But it's like this idea that like Donald Trump is their savior. At this point, it has gotten to the fact of that it is. And I know that this is going to make it become like pretty this is like a pretty unbiased situation, like a conversation, but like it has gotten to the point of a cult mindset. Because they are seeing Donald Trump as put onto this earth and being led by God himself. And that is like words of Trump supporters. They literally pray at the end of his rallies.
Which, keep in mind, he's not even religious.
He's not even religious. He's been
he's just
he doesn't go to
way.
church. He's been he's assaulted women. He has been in multiple marriages and divorces. He like has cheated on his wives, like things like that. Like, all factual, like, people have come out to say these things. And people see him as brought to this earth by God and brought to this earth to make America better and to bring us back to the ideal America. And that is the America of like World War I, with like pro-nationalism. Hurrah, hurrah. And like, they want us to go back in time, basically. And like, he's giving the people what they want. His PR team has gotten so good at getting the people what they want. Getting his followers what they want.
I do just want to talk a little bit about his team too. It says,
because they're smart for what they've been doing.
No, 100%.
Like, they're genius for creating this fake reality.
And really quick, like, his PR team lets him personalize as much as he wants. Like, you've probably heard about his X posts and his tweets throughout his presidency, and like just like on True Social even,
or
which is this like new platform that he uses that's basically like Twitter, but it's like a more conservative Twitter platform,
and it's owned by him, right?
Yes.
It's like either owned or like it's run by him, because he got kicked off of
OAN.
X.
Because like One American Network.
Because because he got kicked off Twitter at one point.
Yes,
that is
but
now
X. Then Elon Musk bought X. And I think he's allowed back on.
But obviously True Social
has grown. He's not allowed on meta sites, I'm pretty sure.
But True Social has grown in the conservative realm.
Yes, and because of him, because his followers are on there to see what he's posting. But anyway, so it says, Kellner 2017 says Trump used PR advisors to promote both his businesses and his persona to eventually become a maestro of the spectacle when his popular TV show, The Apprentice, made him into a national celebrity. Trump ran his 2016 presidential campaign as a media spectacle with daily tweets tweets, now X posts, that became fodder for TV news and with rallies where he would make outrageous comments, still does, that would be replayed endlessly on cable and network news. Trump thus dominated news cycles by creating daily spectacles of political attack, insulting and negatively defining opponents, thus helping to construct daily media events through which he was able to define the news agenda. And then further, it says, we now live in an era where the digitally mediated spectacle has contributed to right-wing authoritarian populist Donald Trump becoming U.S. president, and DeBoard's concept of spectacle is now more relevant than ever to interpreting contemporary culture, society, and politics.
I feel like the fact that he was able to post on Twitter, it was then Twitter, now X,
yep,
that without any PR or campaign restrictions is insane.
Yep.
Like, that is like, no one does that. No one does that.
I think they wanted to personalize him so badly. Like, they were like...
Because he's literally untouchable. He's one of the richest people on earth. Well, I don't know after having to pay all of those court dues
not anymore, but he was.
I was about to say, like, during all that, he was, like, one of the richest men in the world.
Yeah.
He was, like, one of the most popular men in the world. Like, not popularity as in, like, people liked him, but popularity as in, like, most well-known.
Yeah. He's very well-known. But also, like, even, like the portrayals have gotten so bad. Like let's dive into some docudrama. Like, he's been portrayed multiple times on many different platforms, but one of the big ones is Saturday Night Live, or SNL.
Yeah.
Which is inherently biased. It is a liberal comedy show based out of New York. And New Yorkers hate Donald Trump. Like, even though he lived there for like a majority of his life, New Yorkers hate Donald Trump.
And like, while they do make fun of both sides, like, they are just inherently biased, and obviously his followers take it as like being inherently biased.
Yeah. So he's inherently purposefully poorly portrayed. And just like portrayed how they want to set the agenda. He's overly dramatized and ridiculous on purpose, and even though I would claim that some of the people who have played him on Saturday Night Live are very talented at playing him, and
I would have to agree. With that.
Very, very imitative of his gestures and his voice and the way he talks. It's very biased and honestly really funny, but
definitely.
Yeah, but he's been portrayed many times. He was in Home Alone 2.
Well, yeah, he wasn't even portrayed in that. He was just, like, in it. Like, he was literally an actor. Like,
which has been removed.
He played himself. What? It was removed?
In Canada.
No way. That's actually crazy. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah. So.
He just, like, going from these influential women to, like, they're trying to better the world in some type of way.
Yeah.
And, like, using the spectacle put on them.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, trying to turn around this, like, awful thing that's happening to them, basically, because it's not fun to be followed by cameras your entire life and maybe ridiculed and criticized.
Nope. But he takes joy in that.
But he's taking joy in ripping people apart on national television.
Yeah.
Making fun of people, giving false accusations, literally lying. Just lying.
Yeah.
He's using it to his advantage, and it's working.
Yeah.
And, like, that's the downfall of the idea of the political spectacle, is that, like, it's working for him.
No, it is. And I just wanted to dive back into the march for 1 second. And I know we had talked about how Jackie and Diana, like, they were idolized for their outfits. Like, Jackie's pink dress, the black veil, and then Diana with her everyday fits, her wedding dress, the revenge dress. But Trump is, like, making this identity, like, purchasable and accessible.
Yeah. He's making it accessible to the everyday person.
Yeah, because he's literally selling his merch. Like, everywhere he goes, he's wearing this red MAGA hat, and anybody can buy those. Anybody, like, anywhere can buy those.
It's like going to a concert and buying merch.
Yeah.
Like, you can buy something. I feel like it wasn't as big. Like, obviously, campaign shirts have been a thing for a very long time, but, like, in the way that Donald Trump is using it, it's never been that big before.
No, yeah, and I would say, like, feeding into the populist argument that Donald Trump is a populist, people wanted to dress like Jackie and Diana, but couldn't because, like, you know, like, they're elitist, they're exclusive, you know, those dresses are expensive. But Trump, you could probably buy a MAGA hat for like $25, $40.
And it's like, at that point, you're not even dressing like him. You're just, like, representing him.
An identity.
You are paying him to be his walking billboard.
No, and you're paying him for an identity.
Yeah.
Like, you put that on, it's an identity.
It's crazy. Like,
It's such a spectacle, such a spectacle. And it's honestly something that we will see coming up, especially more recently with his trials, but in November for the election.
Yeah.
100%. And it's even escalated since he has been declared the Republican nominee for presidency.
Like, this idea of political spectacle is, like, only going to grow. And seeing it, like, how far it's grown and the progression that it's had to the point of where it is with Donald Trump, like, I can only see it just, like, becoming more and more harmful.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
To, like, just about anything. Especially, like, the political world. Like, no matter what, there's no getting rid of it, and it's going to be impossible to change. But, like, what it's created is a monster.
Yeah. And that these, like, you know, professionals that are put into government to advocate for people are becoming celebrities and, like, so far up on the pedestal that we can't even reach them. Like, they're becoming these idolized features when they're like, really, they should just be working for us and voting for us in Congress, like AOC. AOC has become this celebrity figure that everybody wants to be, and, like, everybody young in politics. And I personally love AOC, but she's just like, no, when it comes down to it, like, she's a celebrity. Like, everybody, she was invited to the Met Gala. Has a government official ever been invited to the Met Gala? Besides Donald Trump. I don't know if he's been invited.
But, like, the fact that it's come so far and got to the point of, like, technically, the people elected into our government work for us.
Yep.
It's literally, they work for the American people to better the American people. And it's gotten to the point of, like, conspiracy theorist, negative lies running our government, created by the idea of political spectacle and fueled by political spectacle.
Yep.
That, like, it can only keep going downhill from here.
Yep.
Which is a really unsettling idea.
I honestly, like, as society concentrates more on social media, I honestly think it's going to get way out of proportion.
You don't think it already has?
Well, it already has, but I think it's going to be even further. Like you were just saying, like, it's just gonna continue to snowball. Like, even Joe Biden has tried to personalize himself and, like,
he's
spectacleize himself, and it's like
his PR team has finally got on top of it and started posting online to, like, make him personable. And it's like, you should have been on this years ago.
No, it's like, Joe Biden, we know, like, nobody has a parasocial relationship with you.
Exactly.
Sorry, bro.
The parasocial relationships created for these people in the eye of the storm of political spectacle, like, are exactly what parasocial relationships are and are based off of. Jackie, Diana, Donald Trump.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a great closer, to be honest.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for listening. This was so much fun. But I'm Alyssa.
And I'm Zoe.
And thanks for listening.
It's listening to our Road to the White House Political Spectacle podcast.